I won't approve any paid leave for you, my boss said. I couldn't believe my ears. You always challenge me. You don't need to come back. Hearing this, I had reached my breaking point. Are you really sure? I replied. My boss looked shocked, her eyes wide with surprise. Too bad for her. My name is Nancy, and I turned 28 this year. I've been working at Kando Corporation for 10 years, making me an experienced employee at a young age. My family wasn't wealthy, but my parents took great care of me since I was an only child. Most of my clothes were hand-me-downs from cousins or neighbors, and I rarely got new outfits. Still, I was quite content. Neighbors and relatives showered me with love, and I have fond memories of going on picnics in local parks with my parents during weekends. Out of sympathy, I'm still close with my cousins, and we keep in touch regularly. Growing up surrounded by love, I served as the student council president in 12th grade and had excellent grades. My class teacher suggested I pursue further studies, but despite being offered a scholarship to college based on my grades, I declined. I'm not interested in going to college. I want to work as a public servant, I said. My parents tried to persuade me otherwise, but considering the costs of living alone, I went against their wishes and became a public servant. I just wanted to relieve my parents of any burden as soon as possible. Then my father was diagnosed with a severe illness and passed away before I could repay his kindness. I decided to take care of my mother in place of my father, continuing to live with her. In the hustle and bustle of daily life, time flew by as I experienced various facets of working life. By the time 5 years had passed, I had become a respected figure in the office, leading a comfortable life. I was given the responsibility of training newcomers and occasionally acting on behalf of my boss. Moreover, the bonuses were good, allowing me to give about $600 monthly to my parents. In my personal life, I enjoyed trips with friends, colleagues, and my boyfriend. One day, our manager was transferred and replaced by a new one. This new female manager was said to be the president's daughter. Rumor had it she had been loafing around, relying on her father's wealth. Unable to stand by and watch, the president decided to put her in a responsible position to teach her some life lessons. Only the president and I knew this. Just because she was the president's daughter, many in the company who knew she was hired due to her background and had little real-world experience didn't think highly of her. The work environment started getting tense, and the atmosphere was increasingly stifling. And then, the trouble eventually came my way. It happened when I made her a cup of hot coffee upon her request. "What's this? Are you trying to annoy me?" she snapped. "I made it just as you told me," I replied. She glared at me and threw the hot coffee in my direction. "Ouch! What are you doing?" Unable to avoid it, my right arm got splashed with coffee. "How is this according to my instructions?" I said I wanted it warm with extra milk and sugar. "I made it warm with 2 glasses of milk and 2 scoops of sugar," I explained. "It's too hot and it's common sense to take 4 glasses of milk and 3 scoops of sugar," she insisted, imposing her values on others. "I'm sorry, I'll make you another one right away." "This is why I don't like high school grads. I heard from my father that you're competent and trusted by everyone." "I have much to learn," she continued. "It's only because of the support of everyone here that I seem competent," I said as the pain in my burned arm intensified. I tried very hard to resist the urge to get away from her and cool my arm as soon as possible. "I was looking forward to meeting you after my father spoke so highly of you, but what a disappointment. I wonder how you won over," she mocked. A nearby employee tried to step in and help, but I signaled that I was okay, not wanting them to become her next target. Those who had been targeted by her so far were mentally driven into a corner and forced to resign voluntarily. Now it seemed I had become her target. As I pondered how to resolve the situation, she forcibly grabbed my burned arm and squeezed the burned area tightly. "You've got guts to ignore me. Don't think you'll get away with this," she said. I grimaced in pain. Satisfied with my reaction, she released my arm and ordered me to make coffee again. I excused myself and hurried to the pantry to cool the affected area. It sucks after work. Sure, here's a simplified version of the story segment. I immediately visited a dermatologist and got prescribed an ointment, but it never completely healed and left a mark, so I dressed in a way that others couldn't see it to avoid causing concern. From that day on, her harassment escalated. "What's this document?" "Nothing but mistakes." "Don't take your job lightly," she snapped. "What exactly is wrong with the document?" I asked, trying to gauge her mood. She threw it at me. "There's no way there could be mistakes in this practice document." I thought, yet she pointed out errors with a red pen. It was unpleasant. I sighed at the immature behavior of such a grown adult. To be frank, this document clearly needs to be redone due to its inadequacies. You came into this department without understanding anything. I would appreciate it if you could accept the mistakes honestly and acquire knowledge appropriate for a manager. As a trainer, I had been assigning tasks to her using the experience I had with new employees so far, but nothing seemed to get through to her. She was a lump of pride. Don't talk back. You guys should just do everything. I'm the manager, so I don't have to do this kind of stuff. That's not how it works. Besides, this is what the president personally told us. You're desperate to be liked by my father, huh? Weren't you from a fatherless family? She suddenly brought up the topic of my family. I had never talked about this with her before. To be precise, you have only your mother now, right? Despite working so hard in a poor family, your father wasn't rewarded and fell ill. We're at work now. Let's stop discussing irrelevant topics. I just thought of having a little interaction. What a boring woman, she mocked. Even I couldn't hide my irritation when she made fun of my parents. You're getting angry? She taunted. Huh, that's hilarious. My parents are wonderful and respectable people. You, who know nothing, have no right to say anything, I said. She quickly picked up on the slight change in my tone. So that's your true nature, huh? Is it okay to have that attitude with the president's daughter? Maybe I should report to my father about your true nature and how I've been treated badly by you. Feel free to do so, I replied. Please correct the test document properly and submit it by today. I'm definitely going to drive you out. As I turned my back on her, she whispered something only I could hear. I ignored her and went back to my seat. Afterward, her sarcasm continued, but I managed to get her to learn the basics. It was still a long road ahead, even though these basics included minor things like detailed computer operations and types of documents. I sat on a bench on the office rooftop, drinking coffee during my break to soothe my exhausted body while thinking about my future. Suddenly, I received a call from an unknown number on my smartphone. Hello, is this Nancy? This is Sav from the hospital. Your mother was urgently transported here and is in critical condition. Can you come right away? My mind went blank, and I couldn't remember much afterward. I left an early leave notice on her desk and caught a taxi to the hospital. Upon arriving at the hospital and explaining the situation at the reception, a nurse guided me to where my mother was. Mom, this can't be true, I said as I looked at my mother lying peacefully with a gentle expression. The doctor explained that my mother had collapsed at her workplace. By the time she arrived at the hospital, they were hoping for a miracle. My mother's heart hadn't been strong for a while, but her regular checkups had shown stable symptoms, and there had been no issues. However, the mental strain from my father's passing might have affected her. I sobbed as I hugged my mother tightly. After coming home with her, I set the funeral date and called the female manager to request my first ever paid leave. I'm sorry for leaving early today and causing trouble. My mother has just passed away, so could I take about a week off for the funeral and everything else that comes with it? Oh, so that's why you left early when I wasn't around, she replied. It was an emergency with my mother, I explained. Her cold and harsh tone hit hard, especially since I was feeling so down. I won't approve any paid leave for you. I couldn't believe my ears. In the 10 years I had worked here, I had never taken a day of paid leave. I've contributed so much to this company. Shouldn't I be able to take paid leave to say goodbye to my mother? You always challenge me. You don't need to come back, she said. At this, I reached my breaking point. Are you really sure? I'll take you up on that offer. She started ranting, but I cut the call without thinking twice. The funeral went smoothly, and I couldn't just sit around grieving. I kept myself busy with various tasks and sent thank you notes to those who had been so kind. It took my mind off things for a bit. She tried to reach me multiple times, but I ignored every attempt. A bit later, I received a call from the president, so I made my way to the office. After 2 weeks, I walked straight to the president's office. On the way, I bumped into 2 coworkers who consoled me. I'm sorry, but I'm going to the president's office first, I said. Their kindness made me feel a bit better. I knocked on the president's office door and asked, It's Nancy. May I come in? I was let in right away. Hey there, it's been a while, he said. I heard you've been out of touch for 2 weeks. This doesn't sound like you. I explained everything, not sugarcoating how she had been treating other employees and myself. Hearing negative things about his own daughter must have hurt him, but the president listened to every word. I apologized for my daughter's actions. To be honest, my wife and I spoiled her, and this is the outcome. No worries, he said. I think my parents must have felt the same way as parents seeing my awkwardness. The president smiled gently and said, Nancy, you're truly a wonderful lady. My daughter's situation was my judgment error. I've spoken to those who've resigned in the past 2 weeks. I can't apologize enough for that, the president said. This was the first time I'd ever seen him look so troubled. Ever since you stopped coming to the department where my daughter works, things have gone haywire. Just the other day, the entire team staged a group protest," he continued. "Really? I had no idea things had escalated that much. So what are you going to do about it?" I asked. The president wore a sad expression for a moment but quickly returned to his usual self. "I need your help. It's easy for me to have my daughter resign, but that alone won't satisfy all the employees. Can you help us?" Looking into the president's earnest eyes, I made up my mind. "Understood. I'm more than happy to assist." So, the process of addressing the situation began. "Hey, how long do you plan on taking time off?" The exasperated female manager finally reached out. "Wasn't it you who told me not to come in? It's strange. I'm just following your orders." "Don't give me that. We're in chaos here. Get to the office now." Reluctantly, I changed into my work clothes and headed to the office. However, there wasn't a single employee present. It was eerily quiet, like working on a weekend. "It's a weekday today, right? Feels weird," I muttered to myself in the empty office. Suddenly, I heard yelling and the sound of something being thrown from my department. Peeking cautiously inside, I saw her causing a ruckus. "What's going on?" I called out from behind her. She swiftly turned and grabbed at me. "It's all your fault. Ever since you stopped coming, everyone else followed suit. Now I can't get in touch with anyone? How will you make up for this?" "I'm not quite following. Can you please not shift the blame?" I asked. I calmly told her to let me go. She pushed me away and was so infuriating. "Even my father won't help," she complained. "How long has it been since everyone stopped coming?" "It's been half a day, and I've been handling calls, which I've never done before. I don't know what to do anymore." Her appearance was pitiful. Her hair was a mess, and her chipped nail polish was a result of her refusal to remove it despite numerous reminders. Her jacket was hung somewhere, showing noticeable frays. Seeing her who had always acted like a queen in such a state, I couldn't help but laugh. "Serves you right," I said. "What did you say? This is on you? No one's going to follow someone who just waves their power around without real skills." As I firmly told her this, her face turned red. "Say that one more time. Do you really want to be banned from the company?" "Well, I'd like to stay if you resign," I replied. "Well then, you're fired. I'll be taking over this company," she said with an eerie smile and a triumphant look on her face. "All right," I said. "It was a short time, but thank you very much." She looked surprised by my reaction. "You do realize you're fired, right?" "Of course. Now I should pack up my things," I said. I carefully made my way to my desk, avoiding the papers scattered on the floor, and started pulling things from the drawers. "Wait, are you really quitting?" she asked, sounding desperate. "Well, shouldn't you at least finish up today's work? Do you know that it's illegal to reject a properly justified paid leave request without a valid reason?" I said. "It's a violation of labor laws. It's mandated by law." Her face turned ashen, showing her turmoil. "We're all human. I understand there are compatibility issues, but that doesn't mean you should drive people into a corner. You're unfit to be a manager," I added as I continued packing up my things. "What do you think you're doing, insulting my parents like that? You're not getting off easy," she shouted. "You insulted my parents too, so you're not getting off easy either," I replied calmly. Shaking with rage, she tried to put on a brave face. "Our worlds are entirely different. Don't let me with you. You're really despicable. I heard you said the same thing and drove those who left into a corner," I said. "That's right. They treated me like I was worthless, so I drove them into a corner as far as I could. It felt so refreshing when they were gone." I sighed deeply and looked towards the corridor. Curious, she followed my gaze and muttered, "Father, why are you here?" There stood the president. As he stepped into the department, he walked straight up to her. "Father, there's been a misunderstanding." "No need for explanations," the president interrupted. "I have evidence of your deeds." "No, they just envied my skills and set me up." "I did nothing wrong," she protested. The president lashed out at her. "You're an idiot because you're so incompetent. I was hoping the competent employees would reform you. Yet under your leadership, our performance plummeted and even caused losses to the company. But you made me a manager, so that means you have faith in me, right? I promise I'll meet your expectations this time," she pleaded. "No. If I hadn't given you a position, you would have run away," the president said, his imposing demeanor making her buckle under the pressure. "I never even thought of letting you take over the company," the president said firmly. "This time, I'll transfer you to the countryside to reform you from the ground up." "Please have mercy," she begged. "Look who's talking," the president replied. "We'll get constant updates from your new location, and the people there are pretty reliable. So brace yourself. She turned pale and lay on her back, crying and laughing hysterically. I chirped cheerfully, "Too bad," and said that to her. Later that day, without anyone to see her off, the former female manager left the company. The next day, the employees, who were given the day off by the president, returned to work with joy. With her departure, peaceful days were restored and smiles returned to everyone's faces. Meanwhile, the former female manager had to start from scratch in a rural town with no conveniences or entertainment. Her family's influence didn't matter there, and she was strictly supervised by her new colleagues every day. As time passed, she began to change. She started speaking respectfully and became open to feedback. The most surprising part was receiving an apology call from her. At first, I listened, but by the end of the call, she was begging, "I've reflected enough. Please ask the president to let me return." Of course, I said no. I ignored further calls and blocked her number. The president personally contacted everyone who had resigned because of the former female manager and invited them back. Thanks to this, the company's performance quickly improved and even surpassed its previous state. As for me, I ended up taking the manager's position that became vacant after her departure, thanks to the president's personal appointment. The entire department was thrilled with this change. Although managing is tougher than I expected and I feel a bit overwhelmed, the support from my colleagues has been great. Despite the physical and emotional pain I endured, including burns, I was compensated with settlement money deducted from the former manager's salary. This amount has been added to my own pay, making my life much more comfortable recently. On a happier note, my boyfriend of 2 years proposed to me, and I overjoyed. We are expecting a child next year, and we are both excited and well prepared for the birth, even though I'm only in my second trimester.